have simply achieved a further place on their trajectory, which has transformed them to a greater extent than it has transformed us. You know, it's like looking at the evolution of sports in the 20th and 21st centuries. Some of you know I enjoy watching boxing. I'm a big boxing fan. I'm a big baseball fan. And when I look at those athletes of the 19th century or early 20th century, they were great athletes. But most historians of those various sports will argue that those athletes, as they were at that time, would probably not compete very effectively today. And it's a simple matter that the sport goes through evolution, it goes through change, it goes through constant refinement. If those athletes were trained in modern methods, that would be different. But the point is, we are at a different place today than our top athletes were a century ago. Well, that's not surprising because those sports have gone through all kinds of changes and transformations and pressures themselves. There's an evolutionary process there, just as there is in human society, right? So this is, I think, a universal thing. So aliens, I think, if they're able to get here, presumably they are farther down the road than we are. And that's all there is to it. You give us enough time, we'll be right where they are. Technocratic, probably hive mind type of society. And I assume that they are looking at us right now, wondering, maybe projecting, maybe thinking they need to manage our transition to this next phase of existence. I think that's why they're here. That and the fact that Earth is an amazing place, and there may be a lot of other things about Earth that they find absolutely fascinating and worthwhile. I've got to think so. Got to think so. But us humans, we're in a pretty unique place as well. So, and then the other thing about us is what I was saying earlier. We're not in a stable place. We are not in a stable place in our development. Everything about our time in history, to me, screams anomaly. Everything. The fact that we have a democratic ethos in our society, that is an anomaly. The fact that we've had free market economics for the past couple of centuries, that is an anomaly. The fact that we've had a kind of scientific, inventive society for the past several centuries, that is an anomaly. That has never happened in our past ever. These are new things, and they've caused, I'm going to show you a couple of charts. This is a population chart. You've probably seen this a million times. This is human population in the long run, going back, to 10,000 BC, and you can go further back. And this, where are we? We're at 8 billion here in 2023. I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but it's pretty far up. So we're on this exponential growth chart, demographically speaking. You look at any chart like that I cannot see how that can be stable indefinitely. That is a spike that is begging to come down in some way or another. It just does not look natural to me in any way. And it happened because we humans uncovered the key during really phase 3 of our existence, which is essentially when that chart really started to explode. After the conclusion of the Black Death, which is that first little dip down there, you see, or actually after, so the Black Death is that first big dip here in the middle of the 14th century. There's an arrow pointing down. And once you start getting into the Renaissance and industry, we're off to the races. So, how that will continue, that's happening because we, shortly after that, began to discover the use of actual science to manipulate our world, which put us on a totally different totally different path. And can that be sustained? In terms of population, I don't know, probably not, but maybe there might be a way that after we have a dip, it'll continue to go. Maybe that's not impossible. It just seems very, very anomalistic to me. Oh, and there's one other chart I just want to show you. This is an aside. And so this is global temperatures over the last 500,000 years. So you can see very clearly we are in an ice age. We have been in an ice age for these past more than 500,000 years, believe it or not, interrupted by every 100,000 years or so by brief interglacial periods where the Earth naturally warms and then it goes back down. And the warming period usually lasts for about 10,000 years or so. And you can see, from 500,000 years ago, it got nice and warm, drops down, freaking cold, comes back up 400,000 years ago to a very, very nice, very pleasant, very balmy, and then drops again. Ouch, that hurts. And comes back up almost another 100,000 years later, and then drops down. You get a little bit of a messiness between 300 and 200,000 years. It doesn't quite go up all the way that it should. You get the idea that the graph was somewhat broken about 250,000 years ago. But then it goes back up again about 130,000 years ago. Very nice and warm, drops down. And then at the end of the Younger Dryas, 11,700 years ago, when it was at its bottom peak, it has been rising ever since in our era, the Holocene era, which is where we are. And where this chart ends, that's where we are today. You have everyone talking about global warming, man-made global warming. I'm not saying we're not having any effect on it, but when you look at the long-term patterns, to me, I would be thinking, okay, we're going to hit an ice age soon. I'm not thinking we're going to become like Venus. I'm thinking we're going to hit another ice age soon because this is what the pattern looks like to me. It could be that human interaction will prevent that chart from dropping down back into the ice age again, but I don't know. Seems like we might just be going back down into another dropping of global temperature, and which, by the way, the thing that is believed to have caused the bottleneck 900,000 years ago was moving into a vicious ice age. So where the ice sheets spread over much of Europe and Asia and North America again, and completely screwed with the global climate, even in places like Africa, and just messed things up and caused drought and hardship and so forth. So that was caused by the return to a major ice age. And you really never know. Like I asked myself, is that what's going to happen? We're going to hit a resumption of the ice age that we are currently in, but we're just in a little bit of an interregnum. And if we go back down there, we might hit a serious bottleneck of our population. But what I'm asking here is, what kind of system must they serve in order to survive? So what I'm saying here is I'm trying to shift the focus of alien speculation from their appearance to their structure, from their physiology to their civilizational logic. And I feel like this is an overdue move. So, we're all used to asking, what do aliens look like? Or what do they want from us? I've asked that a million times myself. But what I'm asking here is, what kind of system must they serve in order to survive? And I suspect that I'm right to focus on convergent evolution, not just in biology, but in social and systemic development. So think of it like if a species becomes technologically advanced enough to travel between stars, or even just to master their own planet, it's very likely has done so by creating increasingly complex systems. We're talking, energy extraction, communication, computation, law, hierarchy. Those systems, just like ours, would demand conformity. They would demand tight coordination and control. So if I look at it in that light, their culture might not be cold because that's their choice. It might be a byproduct of what it takes to survive complexity. So when we think of these emotionless or technocratic beings and a lot of the encounter reports, we might not be seeing them as alien. We might actually be seeing our future. It's more like we're both responding to the same universal pressures of entropy, coordination, and then control. Like we're basically working with an informational system that has certain requirements. It doesn't mean that we're going to lose our individuality entirely, but it does suggest to me that freedom, as we imagine it, might be a temporary luxury of less complex systems. Any extraterrestrials or aliens or wherever they're from that are here, assuming that they are here, which I do, and assuming that they have become intelligent as we have become intelligent, and they also are products of all of the same informational pressure that we are shaped by. So instead of asking what they want, maybe I might want to ask, what is the logic of the system that they are following? So if we have a universe governed by information, just stay with me on this, then maybe, and I think this is actually true, intelligent life does not serve personal ends, but systemic roles. So in that view, Earth would be under observation, not so much because we're special, but because we are unstable. We are a young, volatile intelligence, but it might be to manage risk. We're not yet ready or allowed to be met, but we're too consequential to ignore. I think it's possible to see that they're here because now we matter, not just as individuals and not just as nations, but as a system that is generating unpredictable new forms of information or unpredictable new forms of energy and unpredictable new forms of potential disruption to a greater system that may exist. It might be more about the necessity within an informational universe that cannot tolerate blind spots. That we are all as intelligent, abstract thinking, informational entities, that we follow a specific organizational structure and path that might potentially be universal because we may all live within the same informational organizational constraints of system development. What do you think about that?